Hi, everyone. I'm Shoshana Schwartz, and I'm an addictions counselor. I've been at Retorno for over 6 years. Today, I'd like to talk about a very sensitive question that arises whenever we talk about addiction. And the question is, are you enabling an addict? Young couple walks into Mifkashim. Mifkashim is Retorno's outpatient division for addicts and codependents. So this young couple, she's pregnant with their first child, and they're there because she caught him. Doing what? He blew $50,000 on some deal. She's not even sure what. But when she discovered this, her world completely fell apart. When she confronted him, it turns out that $50,000 is just the beginning, a drop in the bucket. There are several other huge debts that she didn't know about. So she's in shock, and someone whispers the word addiction in her ear. So she drags him off to Mifkashim, Retorno's outpatient center. Now, sometimes gamblers can be treated as outpatient. It depends on the case. How long he's gambling, what his patterns are, how bad his debts are, how his functioning is, depends on many factors. So the Mifkashim staff do an intake, and they determine that this particular individual, he needs inpatient treatment, which is a long-term, intense program. And they tell this to the young couple. So what do you think her reaction is? She bolts out of her chair and she says, "What? Are you crazy? I'm pregnant with my first child and you want him out of the house for 7 months?" The social worker, he leans forward and he says, "Yes, your husband is very sick and this is what he needs in order to really make a change." And she just sits there, shaking her head. And the social worker looks back at her, and he knows without a doubt that she is not going to let him do this treatment, and that this guy is going to keep gambling. But let's say that it's not her first pregnancy when this happens, it's her fifth, right? They've moved 12 times in 8 years. They've had their electricity cut off, their gas cut off. They've had their credit denied, their credit cards canceled. The local grocery store won't extend them any more credit. And once again, they can't pay their rents and they're being evicted. Their debt is near $500,000. And now she gets it. Now she gets it. But he still doesn't get it. He thinks just one more deal, one more chance, one more golden opportunity, one more sure thing. That's what he thinks. So we know that change is not going to come about through him because he's not suffering. He's confident. He has a plan. He has it all worked out. He's using, and his drug is gambling. And you don't feel pain while you're drugged. But the wife, she's suffering. So we're going to approach his addiction through her, because we can only work with someone who's suffering. Only someone who's suffering is going to be able and willing to do that work, because it's hard work, and they're going to go through some really tough stuff. And only someone who's suffering is going to be willing to do that in order to make the change. So that might sound very simple, right? But usually it's not simple at all, because very often she is enabling him. As strange as it sounds, some part of her actually benefits by his using. Now, imagine if you'd say this to her face, "Mrs. Cohen, you want him to keep using." Can you imagine her reaction? I mean, even as I say this, I'm imagining what's going through some of your minds. Like, yeah, blame the victim. How dare you? How dare you? But really, she does have a part in this, which I'll explain. Somehow it serves a purpose for her. How can that be? So in order to understand this, I'd like to talk about codependency. All right, there's this game called addiction, and it's a game played by the whole family. So let's take an example of a mother and a son. We had a case not too long ago a 17-year-old boy who's on his phone 18 or 19 hours out of every 24. So the mother called us, despairing of him ever having a life or doing anything other than sit in front of a screen again. So of course she's very unhappy, and of course she wants him to stop. So what does she usually do?
Esto es un,
She nags.
un-
Please. Okay, thank you. So what does the mother usually do? She nags. She reminds him, and quite often, that he must have better things to do, that he's wasting his time, he's wasting his life. And she asks him, how long have you been on? What have you done today besides sit on your phone? So what answer does she want to hear? Of course, she wants to hear from him that no, he just sat down, he's going out soon, he's going to school, he's doing anything except just sitting on his phone. Yeah, that's what she wants to hear. So the kid who needs to sit on his phone gives his mother what she wants, empty reassurances. I just sat down 5 minutes ago, Mom, really? Or I'm just doing homework. It's research for a homework assignment, which is actually incredible because he hasn't actually been in school for 3 weeks. Or just a few minutes, I'll be there in a few minutes. And she, the mother, believes him because she has to believe him because she has no way to force him off the screen. And if she does succeed in ungluing him from his phone, he's impossible to have around. He's impossible to deal with. He picks fights with everyone. He riles the whole house up. He makes so much noise that she wishes that he would just go and find some quiet activity to do somewhere, which he does, right back at his phone. So what does she do now? She's a responsible, well-meaning mother. So she sets boundaries. She's firm about the times he can use his phone, and when he doesn't stick to it, she threatens to throw the phone out. And he counters with, fine, I'll just go use my friend's phone, which scares her even more because this friend of his is in an even worse state than her son. And at least if he's home, she can keep an eye on him. Or she'll say, fine. Or he'll say, fine, I'll buy another phone. And the only reason he hasn't done that so far is because he doesn't have enough money. But somehow she knows that that's not going to stop him, which scares her even more. So as painful as it is for mom to see her son waste his time, it also does serve her because as long as he's busy with his phone, he's quiet, he's home, and he's safe, or at least safer than what's out there, or that's what she thinks. And letting him use his phone is just easier on the whole family than not letting him. So now what does she do? So she goes back to nagging because she just wants the problem to go away. She can't deal with it. So she goes along with the game that if she nags, things will somehow stay in control. So she might go back and forth between nagging and begging, being firm, being nasty, threatening. She'll try everything in any order. Now, when mom finally comes to our outpatient program for Mifkashim for help, she doesn't really want to believe that there's a serious problem here, that her son simply can't control his using anymore, and that he's really an addict. So that's why she's prepared to listen to him and believe him when he says, I promise, it's the last time. She wants with her whole being to believe him. So when he gives that promise, she believes it because it's just too hard for her to admit that he's out of control and that he can't or won't quit. How many times has this already happened that he said last time? Dozens, hundreds. And it doesn't matter if he's using a phone or if he's using weed or alcohol, whatever he's using, she seeks that reassurance one more time. Why? Because just like the gambler who says only one more time and everything will be fine, just like the alcoholic who says, I just need one more drink. So mom also says, just this one more time I'll remind him, this one last deal I'll make with him, this last promise, that's all I need. That's what's going to do the trick. This is the last time. So she lets him sit on the phone for just 1 hour because that's all he needs. And at the end, he sits all day and the next day, and the next day. We all want solutions. We want easy solutions, easy answers, quick results. And when there's addiction, whether you're the addict or the one in a relationship with the addict, we want it to be resolved now. We want an instant solution. So every time there's a promise that it'll never happen again, or there's sudden quiet and it seems like things are getting better, we fall into the trap of believing that things have turned around. But we need to understand that addiction is not something that's going to get better on its own. Addiction is bigger than us. It's something that we're simply not equipped to handle. So nothing will change until the wife or the husband or the mother comes in and says, I don't know how to deal with this problem. And when she does that, then she'll be ready to get help. She'll be ready to really establish boundaries and learn how to maintain those boundaries. She'll stop believing his empty promises. She'll stop believing the lies. She'll learn what the truth really is. What is the truth? What's addiction? It's a world of lies. It's living a lie and convincing everyone else that the lies are true. Addiction is a world where everything's fine. You don't need to struggle with anything or work hard or face problems. You don't need to deal with your wife or your kids, your job or your lack of job. When you're using, it's all good. Codependence is exactly the same thing, works the same way, except that with coda, there's no actual drug, which is why it is so difficult to be in this situation. Because at least the addict has a drug. He has something to use to escape. But for a codependent, instead of putting your head in the sand and feeling wonderful and high, you just have to believe, without the benefit of an actual drug, that everything's going to be okay. It's only when she realizes finally that it's a lie, that she's in a hole that she can't get out of, only then can she start to actually deal with the problem effectively. And then, with the right help, we'll start to see changes in the family. And this can only happen when she stops enabling. Now, as I said, this whole idea is probably very new to her. She has no way of understanding her role in all this, or the role of the other family members. She thinks that she's doing everything she can to stop the problem. And without knowing it, she's actually enabling it. So in order to help her understand her role and how it's actually enabling rather than helping, let's go back, look at that couple who came into Mifkashim for his gambling or spending addiction. He spends, she frets. He spends more. She cajoles, bargains, nags, begs, makes deals, threatens. Ultimately, she believes his promises, which, by the way, he might totally mean. Sincerely, he might be entirely sincere, but he has no tools to keep his promise. So his making the promise and her believing it are the game that they both play to keep things status quo. And of course, some women, many women, do more than just nag and beg. They cover their husband's debts. They take out loans for them. They sign papers without reading them. I've personally worked with several women who've signed over their bank accounts, their apartments, their cars, they signed it all over. Why? Because they're pressured. Sign quick, because you'll read it later. Just sign, trust me, quick. They'll sign because the husband says, just, trust me, it's all good, but you don't trust me. And they'll do these kinds of things in order to be the nice guy, to win their husband's favor, so that that's the thing that'll make him promise never to do anything like this again. They do it out of fear because their husbands borrow money from the wrong people and they're scared for their husband's safety. They do it because they want their husbands to stay out of jail. They do it for all good reasons that enable the husband to keep doing exactly what he's been doing, making the problem bigger and bigger and bigger. When the couple is expecting their first child, sending the husband, and that, you know, they haven't gone through the whole chain of losing things and being indebted and, you know, having their electricity cut off and their credit cards. And when it's just happened once or twice, sending the husband away for 7 months might seem to be really, really ridiculous to her, like total overkill. But after it's played itself out for 8 or 10 years and the electricity and the gas and all these things have been cut off, so now she's had enough. And if we can explain his cycle of addiction to her, then we can also explain her cycle to her. And it's her that we're going to take into treatment, not him. Because she's had enough, but he hasn't. He doesn't see. But once she comes into treatment to deal with her codependency, her enabling, she'll learn how to stop unintentionally playing his game. She changes the dance between them. Because when two people are dancing, it only takes one to change the dance. Does it always require professional intervention to get the enabler, to get the addict to treatment? No. Very often the wife or the mother can rally support and get the addict into treatment, but she will need follow-up, because otherwise when he does come back after he goes to treatment, he comes home afterwards, she's likely to accidentally fall into their own dance. And just as he needs to learn how to live differently, so does she. And she needs someone to teach her a new dance. He needs treatment. He needs to learn how to handle his emotions without his drug, his escape. And she needs to learn that controlling someone else and fixing him is her drug. By getting her to understand her problem, we actually can address both their problems. In Israel, we have our outpatient program, Mifkashim, that specializes in codependency. There are 2 branches, one in Jerusalem, one in Beit Shemesh. So that's great for Israel. What about outside Israel? So there's no Mifkashim. So what can you do? What can you do? Forget about him. Forget about him. It's her. Get her the help she needs. Help her find a therapist who gets codependency, who really gets it, who can help her understand what it means to live with an addict. Someone who can show her how she's getting drawn into his game, his issues, his drama. Somebody who can show her that she's living his problem. What she needs to do is get stable and get empowered. And then when she stops saving him from himself and lets him feel the consequences of his own actions, he'll also begin to suffer from his actions. And when he cries out because of his problem, she can say, okay, you're suffering, how can I help you? From a sane place, a stable place. Not by believing his empty promises, but getting him the professional help he needs. In addition to Mifkashim's outpatient program, we also offer courses that deal with intervention and treatment of addictions and other extreme behaviors, to learn how to recognize its manifestations, the stages of treatment, and practical tools for dealing with youth and adults at risks. The courses are separate for men and women, and I encourage everybody to look into them if it's a possibility for you if you live in Israel. Whether you're dealing with the addict or the family of an addict, you can be the one to make the right intervention and to provide help where it's going to be the most effective. Okay, thank you for joining us. I believe we're opening it up now to questions. Elisheva, are you there?
Hi, thank you so much, Shoshana. My name is Elisheva, and I'm be moderating the discussion right now. And right now everyone's on mute, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute anyone who wants to ask a question. Shoshana has about 10 minutes or so to answer questions from the audience, and so I welcome anyone who has any feedback, comments, or questions to go ahead and ask. It'll just take me 30 seconds or so to unmute everyone. So Be patient. Great. Okay, I believe we are ready. So, does anyone have any questions? Okay, if anyone has a question, they can just jump in. I actually do have a question though on my end. Shoshana, can you tell me a bit more about those programs and courses that Retorno offers, just for practical strategies for dealing with addicts in our lives?
So until now, we've been running these courses in Hebrew. They're professional courses run by social workers and addiction counselors, people who've been doing this for years. And they are growing increasingly popular. They give you all the many different tools, things that through the experience in Retorno of working with addicts and families of addicts, how to different modalities, different aspects of treatment and intervention for identification and treatment. But now we're starting to offer them in English as well. I believe they're signing up now for courses. They're five sessions. For more information about the course, I'd be happy if people will contact me afterwards about the courses, and I can hook you up with the people who actually have the syllabus to go into more detail about what the courses are about.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder, after the webinar, I should be sending out Shoshana's contact information. So if anyone wants to contact her directly or wants to continue the conversation, they're welcome to do so. Great. Are there any other questions or comments from the audience?
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry for the background noise. In terms of resources available to overseas people, what can Retorno offer, if anything?
Okay, thank you for your question. So we have a few different ways that we can try to help you. One is we have some of our social workers are available for interventions, which we can set up online or through me, and they can help you in your specific circumstances, like whether it's how to set up an intervention or how to deal with a family member, whether it's a short-term question and answer that somebody has, or a longer-term therapy situation they might want, whether it's through phone calls or Skype. We have different options to be able to help families who are dealing with an addict. Another option, of course, is to help a person either through this social worker that would be speaking to you, or through an addiction counselor, to help the person actually come into treatment in Retorno. Sometimes if the addict is suitable for our program, so then we can help him, navigate what needs to be done in order to help. And if none of those options are suitable, so we have some resources in the States that we try to help match you up with somebody in your area who might be suitable. Very often I get a lot of calls about people who aren't necessarily looking like a codependent program. Codependent needs professional help very often, but it doesn't necessarily need inpatient treatment. So we have people calling all the time. They're looking for resources in the US for codependent, a social worker or a recovery person who can walk you through that. So we do have different resources that we can hook you up with.
Okay, well, when you guys send out the details later, can you include some idea of what the costs are for that intervention support?
There was some interference. I didn't hear your question.
Sorry, when you guys send out the details later, can you include some links or information about the cost for that intervention support you described?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Are there any more questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Shoshana, for your time. And like I said, we'll be sending out a recording of the webinar, hopefully tomorrow, and as well as Shoshana's contact information if anyone wants to be in touch with her. So thank you all very much for your time, and Look forward to being in touch with you all for future webinars.
Okay, thank you.